What the flux is up in image generation? Well, I probably don't have to Schnell you. It's all about Flux.1 from Black Forest Labs. Now don't worry, we're not going all fanboy here. I'm not going to make this into a Flux.1 is the killer of every other AI image generator. We're just going to see what the thing can do and you decide for yourself. Now, real quick, Flux.1 comes from Black Forest Labs, which is apparently some dudes that used to be at Stable Diffusion who went off and did their own thing, and their first thing is Flux.1. On the Black Forest Labs homepage, we see lots of beautiful images that have been created, but remember, these are the cream of the crop, and we don't know how many generations it took to get here. Now, Flux comes in 3 different versions. You got Flux.1 Pro, Flux.1 Dev, and Flux.1 Schnell. In German, Schnell means fast, and indeed it is fast. Flux.1 Schnell is also the one that you can run locally on your own machine. It doesn't take a whole lot of resources. We're not going to get into that today, but in case you missed it, you can run this locally. Now, there's several different places that you can experiment with these models right now. Black Forest Labs recommends Hugging Face, Replicate, and Fal.ai. We're going to look at it on Replicate and Fal.ai. As we go through these, in the upper right-hand corner, I'm going to have the version and the platform I use to generate the image, along with the prompt right here on the side, so that you can see exactly what I did to get this particular image. This is the Schnell version, the fast version, and the prompt is a street musician playing guitar in a bustling subway station. Using the same prompt about the street musician, but using the Pro version, which is available on Fal.ai, this is what we got. Next up, using the Schnell model on Fal.ai, I did a selfie of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman in her 20s with naturally textured skin. Now, I have noticed that particularly in the Schnell version, the skin tends to be plasticky or just too smooth or something, which is why I started with this naturally textured skin in the prompt, although it didn't help a whole lot. It gave us a little bit of texture under the eyes and on the nose, but it still looks kind of plasticky if you ask me. Using the same prompt with the Dev version, also on Fal.ai, we got this image, very clean, and this woman actually looks like she might be in her 20s. The previous one looked a little older to me than that. Maybe I'm just not right. What I'm looking for in these portrait images, especially when I tell it naturally textured skin, I'm looking for a realistic image, because people don't have perfect, flawless skin. And to me, the beauty is in those imperfections. Try the same prompt with the Pro version, also on Fal.ai. We get this image. We definitely got a little more detail in the texture of the skin, even in the forehead. The darker background is pretty cool, and then you have the lighting on her face here that looks like maybe it's reflecting off the flash or something. Next, we have a teacher explaining a concept to a classroom full of engaged students. This is what Schnell gave me using replicate.com. I had to stop and look at this one for a minute because I couldn't find the teacher, and then I realized I guess it's this guy sitting over here. I was a bit confused about the organization of this classroom. We got one dude turned around over here, and everybody it looks like is huddled up in this corner. And then the faces. If you look at some of these faces in the distance, like this guy and this one, not so good. Now, trying the same prompt with Pro, I think this one came out really well. The only thing that I noticed is this clock here in the middle of the chalkboard. That seems like a weird place for it to me, especially when it looks like there's already one up here. But the hands, the face, the realism, that all looks pretty good. Using the Schnell model on Replicate, I basically prompted for an abandoned amusement park that was sort of being reclaimed by nature, and this is what it gave me. Using the Schnell version in Fal.ai, I prompted for a group of friends having a picnic in a vacant lot, and at first glance, it looks pretty good. But then once we take a closer look, we can see that we've got some issues here. And they're really with hands, faces, and feet, which I'm not a big fan of feet, but there's something wrong with these feet. The hands also are just weird. Faces did not come out so well. And that was pretty much universally amongst all these folks. These hands here, I can't pinpoint what's wrong, but I can tell you it just doesn't look natural. And then I think this over here, the way this woman is sort of behind or morphing into this dude, You know, that could be perspective, but it just seems odd to me. Now, I will say that some AI image generators, when you have multiple people in one image, those people will look identical. It'll be like they're just clones of each other, and I've not experienced that at all in the Flux.1 models, any of the three. Trying the same image using the dev version in Fal.ai, this is what I got. Again, it looks pretty good on the surface, but when you start to look at the hands and feet, things are just weird. And back here, this woman has two legs. The hands are kind of funky, and then whatever this is going on with this toe, she probably should see a doctor about. But the background, the composition, where it put the camera, really cool. I like that. Here we are, the same prompt in the Pro version on Fal.ai. At first, I thought we had hit the mark here, but then I noticed at this spot right here, her leg is just sort of chopped off right there. It's just cut off. This woman, it looks like she's holding a sixth finger between some of her fingers or something. And then down here, again, as much as I hate looking at feet, this is not normal. I heard from somebody recently that trying to get like a main street was difficult in AI image generators. It usually flubs up the buildings pretty bad and it does weird things. So I've been experimenting with that myself lately and found that to be a pretty accurate criticism. They do often just flub up the buildings, especially the tops. So this is what I got with Schnell, and it's not bad. The buildings look okay to me. I don't see any glaring errors. I'm sure if you're an architect or an architectural photographer, you might be able to find some things here that aren't quite right. What bothered me about this particular image is that on a main street, I'm envisioning cars, not this brick walkway. I wanted to see like 2 lanes of road and some parking, but I didn't specify that. So I don't know that I can blame it. In the dev version, I have the same sort of complaint, which is that I don't have a real street here. This is a 1 lane, looks like it's a walkway. Now I know some town squares have sort of closed off and made it all walking or whatever, but what I had in my mind was a 2-lane road with cars and parking on either side, what I think of as a typical Main Street America. Other than that, I think this one came out pretty nice. This goofiness up here is a little bit different. And then this is the Pro version, which got the understanding a little bit better of what I was going for. You actually do have cars over here parked. Looks like a street where cars could move. I love the way it blurred to the back and then it's focused up front here. I think that one came out pretty well. Now, a lot of people are really raving about how well Flux.1 does with text, so I had to take that for a test drive. And what I was trying to do was get a piece of paper in a typewriter where it had typed "the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog." Schnell in Fal.ai got the composition right. It's got the typewriter, the paper coming out, and there's text on it. What I really wanted was for it to be the size that it would be as though it was typed on the paper. And also it messed up the text pretty big. I mean, that wouldn't be usable as an image. Now, the dev version did much, much better with this. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. That all looks pretty good. My only beef with it is that it was too big, and I was very specific in my prompt in saying the text is in a 12-point font proportional to what a typewriter would produce with small, evenly spaced letters. This is Flux.1 Pro. Again, everything looks great except for that text is just too darn big. But we really should take a minute, and even though I got really focused on the fact that this text is too big and I want it smaller, this is pretty impressive for a model to put the text exactly where you want it and get it right. So I should cut it some slack for not being small enough. There might be a better way to write this prompt to tell it that we're zooming in on this text that's on the typewriter paper. Of course, then you would lose a lot of the other elements. It might be just an image that focuses in on this little part right here where you'd lose the typewriter and the lamp and all that jazz. And maybe that's cool, maybe it's not. So I wanted to test this text deal a little bit more using Schnell, and this was over on Replicate. I went for a changeable letter sign on the roadside in front of a bar and grill featuring block letters reading "Soup of the Day, Whiskey." This is what it came out with, and up here in bar and grill, it's a bear and grill. But other than that weird thing going on, as far as the changeable letter sign, it looks great. The cars and everything in the background, the whole composition looks good. Unfortunately, the bear and grill would probably make that unusable as it is, so we'd have to regenerate and try and get it right. Here's the same prompt using the dev version. Soup of the day, whiskey. This is roadside like I asked it for. There's cars going by. That is definitely a changeable letter sign. I think this one looks really, really good. I was impressed with this one. Here is the same exact prompt, pro version on Fal.ai. This is roadside, soup of the day, whiskey. That came out good. Even this sign up here was almost all right. A lot of the AI image generators, when they put signage on things in your image, it's really weird or completely unreadable. This, you might even have to take a second glance to see that it's kind of weird. Maybe it's okay. Maybe they wanted 2 different size L's. I don't know. Continuing on, trying to get the text in here, I've got this really long prompt that obviously I didn't write. I had AI write it for me, but it's supposed to be a cute little fluffy dog out in the field with "Let's Play" and text above it. Now it does say that the letters are floating above the dog, casting a slight shadow on the grass, and it didn't do that really at all, but I'm totally fine with that. And this was with the Schnell version on Replicate. Next, I did the same exact prompt using the dev version on Fal.ai. We got a shadow of the dog this time. We didn't get shadowing on the letters down on the grass, and I think maybe that could have been clearer in the prompt is part of the issue, because in this sentence, when it says written in bold colorful letters floating above the dog, comma, casting a slight shadow on the grass, I can see how that would be interpreted as the dog is casting the shadow on the grass. Not super worried about that. I think it did a fine job with the lettering, just like it did in the Schnell version, and the dog is pretty darn cute. Here we are using the pro version in Fal.ai, and the text looks good. Let's play, spelled right, looks really nice up there. Dog's adorable, got a little shadow. You're really in focus on the front of the dog and this grass right here, and then really blurry in the background. One of the things that people like about Flux.1 is a general lack of censorship. Now, we have to caveat that, because if you're running it on a platform like Fal.ai or any of these other platforms that have these models available, those platforms may have built in their own censorship, so they may not allow you to do celebrities or gore or suggestive, not safe for work adult type images. But if you're running it locally on your own computer, as you can with the Schnell version, there wouldn't be any censorship. So I wanted to see how it would do with some famous people within these platforms that you can go run it in the cloud on. So I started with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris at a taco truck. This is the Schnell version running on Fal.ai. I think it did a pretty good job. The hand here looks good. I think this is a pretty good representation of both of the people that I asked for. I did not tell it to put a mask on her. I'm not sure why it decided to do that. Not even going to question it. The skin does look a little plasticky to me, just a little too smooth. But for a super fast generation like the Schnell model gives you, I think it did well. Here I asked for Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart, and I'm just not buying it. There are some things that look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson here, and a few similarities to Kevin Hart, maybe just really the tight edges on his hairline. We've got a thumb and then 5 fingers, so that's not so good. And then Dwayne's hand on Kevin Hart's shoulder, his middle finger is outrageously long compared to the other fingers. I guess we'll give it the "Hey You Tried" award for this image. Now let's take a look at Fal.ai. You do need a GitHub account to sign into Fal. That's easy enough. You just go to GitHub, register there, create your account, and then when you go to Fal.ai, you'll connect with your GitHub account. What I really liked about Fal is that it has the Schnell, the dev, and the pro versions available. It also lets you adjust some settings. For Schnell, you can do the image size, the number of steps, the seed, and the number of images. For Dev, you can also adjust the guidance scale, and then for Pro, you get all those adjustments plus the safety tolerance. And they give you like a $2 credit to start. When you go to Fal.ai, the Flux models are all right here at the top in the most recent apps. If you scroll down, they have tons of other models here, and you can also find the Flux.1 Dev, Flux.1 Schnell, and the Flux.1 Pro is around here somewhere. We will start with Schnell. Let's click on that. It's pretty simple. You've got your prompt here. You can drop down this More button for additional settings, change the image size, the number of inference steps, the seed, sync mode as if you're using the API, set the number of images, and it has a toggle to enable the safety checker, but you can't turn that off. And even though the $2 that they give you to start with doesn't sound like much, if you look at the bottom over here under where your image would be generated, it says your request will cost, what is that, 0.3 of a cent per megapixel, and for $1 you can run this model about 333 times. So using Schnell, $1 gets you 300 images. That's a pretty good deal. To generate on Fal, you just click the Run button down at the bottom, and there is our image. If you want to see the image bigger, you just click this little Open button under it, and there it is. If you want to download it, you just click the Download button right here. If you want to see your past generations, when you're on the page with this model, go up here to where it says Requests, click that button, and you'll see all of your requests. You can also see, looking down this duration, this is the generation time it took for each one of these requests. I did have a problem yesterday where for a few minutes I couldn't get it to generate. As you can see, that's fixed, but the one we just generated, 0.62 seconds. And then the ones I was successfully generating yesterday using Schnell, most of them were under a second. There were a few that went to 1.5 seconds, but they were pretty quick. If you want to go back to the screen where you have this particular prompt and the image it generated, you just click this little play button. If you're a techie and want to see what's under the hood, click these 3 dots and it'll pop up and give you the input, the output, and the log. I'm going to come back up here and click Playground, and if I go up to where it says Text to Image Schnell, if I drop that down, I can also switch to Text to Image Dev or Image to Image Dev. I'm not doing Image to Image today, but it's there. You can go Text to Image Dev, and now we'll be generating with the Dev model. We can use that same default prompt that's in there. These are the settings that you have for the Dev model. These are all the defaults which I used when I was generating these. The new setting that you get from Schnell to Dev is the CFG, which is a classifier free guidance, and this is how much you want it to weight your prompt. The default is 3.5, and that's just fine. The steps here is how many steps it's going to take through the image to refine it. The default in Fal is 28. For Dev, it's 4 steps for Schnell. And that's why Schnell is so fast, because in only 4 refinement steps, it's outputting the image. And it's pretty good for 4 steps. So we'll generate Dev so you can see how that goes. We're going to say Run. And there's our result. You can also see under this generation that it says your request will cost, it'll be 2.5 cents per megapixel. For $1, you can run this model approximately 40 times. So that's for Dev. Now, if you want to get to Pro, it's not up here in the drop-down, but what you can do is come up to the top here and click Model Gallery, which will bring us to this page. And then we'll just scroll on down until we find Flux.1 Pro, which is right here. And now we're in Pro. This is the same prompt of that tiger eye with the Flux text over it. If we click More to see the additional settings, in addition to the steps and the guidance scale that we got when we went from Schnell to Dev, now we also have this safety tolerance, which is currently set at 2, and I'm just going to leave that on the default. We'll go ahead and just click Run on that. That eyeball is insanely detailed. The pricing to run Flux, it says 5 cents per megapixel. For $1, you can run this model approximately 20 times. Replicate.com is one of the partners that Black Forest Labs recommends where you can generate images. A sign-in is required, but you have some different options using your Google account or whatever. You can run the Schnell version of Flux there for free, but to run Dev or Pro, it is a paid service. The settings you can adjust on Replicate are the size, number of images, seed, output format and output quality. And if we come to replicate.com, we have a page that looks like this. I'll go ahead and sign in with GitHub. If, like me, you're not into setting up a bunch of workflows and appies and whatnot, and you're just here to play with the model, come over and click on this Models button in the top menu from wherever you might be, and look for this button that says, I just want to run models. Now you've got the featured models, and you'll find the Flux Schnell here. Click on that, and you've got your input box, your settings, and then your output image. So we can use this same prompt that's already in there about the cake spelling out the words Flux Schnell. One thing you may want to look at down here is under the output format, it defaults to WebP. That is so annoying. You might want to switch that to maybe a PNG. Click Run on that. That's our cake with Flux Schnell spelled out on it. It generated that in 1.5 seconds. Let's see, I think it spelled it correctly, and it looks very delicious. Now I'm hungry. From here, you can download it by just clicking this download button. The pricing for Schnell on replicate.com is the same as Fal. It's 0.3 cents per image. We click this box, it'll show us how many images we get per dollar. That's 333.333 images per dollar. Now from here, I'm going to click on Black Forest Labs up at the top. That'll show me all the models they have by Black Forest Labs. If you come over here and click on Flux Pro, you'll see this message that says add a payment method to run this model, and it tells you what it's going to cost, or you can try our featured models for free. If we look at the cost under this little pricing section for Flux Pro, it says that the output is 5.5 cents per image, and that breaks down to about 18 images for $1. You can go that way with it, or you can go to Fal.ai and use your $2 starter fund to generate with Flux.1 Pro. Alternatively, it says you can try out our featured models for free. That's kind of maybe, because when you click on featured models, Schnell we just generated from in Replicate, so we know we can do that, but Dev is listed there. If I click on Dev, I get this same message that says add a payment method or try out our featured models for free. So unless I'm doing something sideways, the only thing I figured out you can create free on Replicate right now is the Schnell, which I'm not complaining about. It's free and it's fast and pretty cool. Now replicate.com and Fal.ai are just a couple of the places that you can access and use these Flux.1 models. There are plenty of other platforms out there that are starting to get them in, and every day there's a bunch more coming online incorporating these models in. You're more than welcome to go look for it and find different sources for it. I used Fal.ai and replicate.com because they were recommended as partners on the Black Forest website. I hope you found this helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.